Hey everybody, welcome to the video. So I know that I don't record too many videos anymore, time issues and things like that, but it is something I do want to start doing a little bit more of as I try to find more time for that. And especially as I find decks that are worthy of really showing off and kind of showing what they, how powerful certain decks can be, and doing like a bit of a spotlight on decks that I feel like are really that good and that cool. So this is kind of, I guess, gonna be the first of that series. So there was a new card introduced. Her name is Sveta, Orian of Kosel. So she's a promo. Most of you have probably seen her by now. This deck is actually based on a deck that came in second at the most previous, or the last ETS that happened, which was yesterday in my time, and will probably end up being way in the past by the time you're watching this video, I'm sure. So what she does is she has a summon ability. I'm going to read from the bottom to the top, I guess. A summon ability that says the enemy player can't play spells or weapons until your next turn, which basically means your opponent can't play spells on their turn. And then she has a weird ability that says you can pay 8 and Exhauster to draw the units from the top 4 of your deck and discard the rest. So if you have 4 units in your top 4 cards, pay 8, draw 4 cards. If you have 0 units in your top 4 cards, pay 8, do absolutely nothing. So, I don't know. You're very rarely going to be activating Sveta in this deck. You don't always get up to 8. You usually tempo out before you get to that point, and usually you're just attacking at that point anyway. She's activated a couple times for me playing this deck. It's not common. She draws a card or 2. It's fine. But really, you're playing her in this deck for her summon ability. You're trying to stop your opponent from being able to interact with you the turn you play her. So you play her, your opponent can't Harsh Rule, they can't Hailstorm like your other board, like the rest of your board away, they can't play a Rune Hammer to deal with it. So playing Sveta allows you to go into your turn and start holding up Stand Together for the foreseeable future if that's something you want to do. So you play Sveta, they can't Harsh Rule, then on your turn you have the Stand Together available, so if they do Harsh Rule, you can answer that. So that's the kind of thing Sveta can do, is she lets you just get on board and makes it really tough for your opponent to stop you from having that board. This is, like I said, a riff on Kamado's deck. Obviously the name of the deck is kind of reminiscent of him. So TJP, tomato, Jabato, potato. So what Kamado was doing was he was playing 4 copies of Mirror Image, and what I realized in playing his version of the deck was that having 4 Mirror Images meant you got stuck a lot of the time with Mirror Images in your hand and no units because your opponent was able to kill them or whatever. So, and it's also not that great of a top deck after like a Harsh Rule or something. So what I ended up doing was swapping out 2 copies of the Mirror Image for this 2 copies of Seraph. And I think that's worked out really well. Having the extra 2 units that you can just play whenever without needing something else on the board is really nice. Having an extra late game like Power Sync to go along with Sveta is also really strong. And just having a 3/4 that dodges like Annihilate and things like that is pretty good. Also having Overwhelm is a pretty big deal when you're like doing Stand Together and Finest Hour things. So that's kind of the main change that I've made with Kamado's deck list. And he's playing the Mirror Images because pretty much every unit in this deck can benefit from having an extra copy of itself. You play it on turn 3 after an Awakened Student, suddenly you have 2 3/3s. You play it after, like you play with an Unseen Commando, and it's basically a second Unseen Commando. It's really strong. Attack with a 4/5, whatever. Copy a Sheltering Rider, you have 2 5/5s with Aegis, you Stand Together them, you have 2 6/6s with Aegis, but mainly you're playing it because of the inclusion of Sveta in this version of the deck now. And that's why you're playing it now as opposed to like not playing it before, is because being able to chain together the summon abilities from Sveta can go a very long way. And obviously if you like Mirror Image a unit that had already previously been Stand Togethered, then you get an Aegis unit as well. So Mirror Image, the nice tech, and is really impressive in this type of deck, but the issue is having 4 of them can get a little bit clunky, so that's why I swapped the 2 out for 2 Seraphs. The rest of the deck is basically just pretty tempo-oriented things. You're trying to play a 2-drop as often as possible, whether it's Awakened Student or Kothon. You want to curve into a 3-drop. Hoorah Pacifier is really good against the Hailstorm decks. Otherwise, you could play Seraph, Unseen Commando, or Valkyrie Enforcer. And then at the top of the curve, we have Sveta and Sheltering Rider. Stand Together ties the whole room together. It gives Sheltering Rider its Aegis back. It makes it really hard for your opponent to Harsh Rule or Hailstorm. And it also usually gives a second ability, like if you have Valkyrie Enforcer or like a Kothon on the board. Where's Kothon? There it is. Or a Seraph for that matter. Giving Aegis is a second ability, which means it can get buffed by Unseen Commando. Flying Aegis, Endurance Aegis, Overwhelm Aegis. So, shall stand together, really powerful card. A lot of versions of this deck play 3 copies. I prefer playing 4 because it can just win so many games on its own that it's definitely really, really good. And yeah, so I'm going to play a couple games with this deck, and we'll see how it goes. All right, up for game number 1. I'm not sure how many games I actually plan on playing. I guess it's something I should have thought of before doing it. I'll probably end up with like 3 or 4. All right, so what I'm looking at here is a hand that doesn't have a 2-drop. I can't even seek power on turn 1, which means even if I draw a 2-drop, I'm not going to be able to play it. Yeah, so overall, just a bunch of things I don't want. Like, I do have things I do want. Valkyrie Enforcer and Seraph are both really strong cards, but I'd rather try to tempo out as often as possible, which means keeping hands that have 2-drops in them. And undepleted power is a nice bonus as well. This hand at least has a 2-drop that, again, I can't necessarily play on turn 2, but I am able to scout and try to find one. Kothon, it's not an undepleted power, but is really, really good. I think I'm going to bottom it, because I think I do want to try to figure out a way to play this Awakened Student on turn 2. Initiate of the Sands. Alright, that can do some pretty scary things to another Kothon anyway. So I'm just going to play out the Seed of Progress and pass the turn. I'll be able to... I have a choice of playing Awakened Student plus power or just playing Kothon plus, I guess, power. So it's the choice of whether having a 3-3 or a 2-3 Endurance next turn. Or if I draw an undepleted power, there's a world in which I play a Huru Pacifier. Although I don't think I'll do that. Alright, so we're facing Praxis Tokens. This deck is... I'm pretty sure the only deck anyone is ever playing anymore. I've played this deck like 12 games in a row at this point. So, I don't know. Maybe it's not a great time to be playing TJP Midrange because I don't think it matches up particularly well against tokens. Because we can really only play like one guy per turn and we can't really deal with their tokens in any type of meaningful way. And Diplomatic Seal, here's an example of a power that I'm not thrilled about being in the deck. I understand why it is, but a lot of times you end up in situations where it's like it just doesn't do anything, doesn't help you at all. Though I guess in this case it doesn't matter because I already have all the influence I need. This deck gets by on 2 Justice, 2 Primal, and 1 Time, so the Seed of Order actually ties everything else together. I'm going to play an Awakened Student this turn, and the Seed of Order. I unfortunately can't hold up this Finest Hour by doing this, but I do think that getting the depleted power out of my hand is good. Alright. Unfortunately, we're just going to get run over by this tokens list. So I think next turn we have to play the Huru Pacifier. We will be able to hold up Finest Hour now, because we have the undepleted Diplomatic Seal. We need to try to find some like Sheltering Riders and Unseen Commandos and things like that. Well, this possible Pacifier can do some work. It's the kind of deck that we need to kind of turn the corner pretty quickly against. Ooh, Valkyrie Enforcer. I think that's the play now. Opponent has missed... Yeah, they missed one of their power. They only have 2 actual power. So I think shutting them off from like future Grenadins or future assembly lines or maybe even like an Obelisk next turn is really, really good. So I'm actually going to play out this power. So now I'm going to Valkyrie Enforcer the Initiate of the Sands. And I wanted to play out the power first because if he had a Torch in response, I wanted to have the ability to Finest Hour. So got myself a 3-3. Opponent did draw the power, which means they could have Obelisked this turn if I didn't silence the Initiate. And opponent chooses not to attack into that. That's really, really, really nice. So now I have the choice to play out 2 units, the Awakened Student and the Kothon. Opponent clearly doesn't have a rally, otherwise they would have attacked and traded away like one of their 1/1s into my 3/3. So I don't think Rally is a card I have to worry about, which means I think I can actually safely attack with this Enforcer and just play out 2 units. The reason I'd worried about Rally is if I want to be able to hold up this Finest Hour, but I think playing out 2 units is going to be a little bit better. Power number 4, yep, means Obelisk. All right, now they are willing to attack in, and I'm just going to block as much damage as possible. We do take a bunch. Can hit back for 5, the opponent falls down to 17, and then they can hit me back for, if I play the Pacifier, 4 damage. I think I'm just going to permafrost something this turn also, instead of holding up the finest tower. Like go Hoover Pacifier plus permafrost. So I will attack for 5 though, because I do need to present some type of clock. So I have 2 blockers left. Kothon having endurance is a pretty big deal here. Decisions to make here. I can attack with the Kothon on the ground if the opponent just double blocks and the finest hour blows it out. If they triple block, then I have like finest hour plus equivocate. Equivocate only gets them back a 1/1, which doesn't matter one way or another because they have the obelisk in play. I am playing kind of Russian roulette with my life total by attacking. So I attack for 6. It's a 3-turn clock currently. Attack for 6, attack for 6, attack for 6. Seek Power is not really a card I wanted. I think Sheltering Rider would have been like the perfect card, or maybe Unseen Commando would go a pretty long way. But as it sits, we'll just play out the Seek Power. 1 turn away from ultimating the Kothon as well. I think I do just attack with actually one of these guys. I don't think it changes the clock that much as long as I have this finest hour in play. So let's attack with the Enforcer for 3 damage. Because I do want to like play around Rally or like a second Obelisk if I can. So I think an attack here would make a lot of sense from the opponent even if they don't have anything. Because it does get them in for 6 damage. I go down to 6, and then I need to be really careful. Second Obelisk is kind of terrifying. Crest of Impulse. Kept the card on top. And they're going to draw it. Must be a card they want this turn. Feels like a torch, right? So I'll be able to Finest Hour. Alluring Ember. 2 Alluring Embers. Alright, well, I guess I'm just going to equivocate one of the flyers. Look at that. I go down to 4. And I'm actually not going to be able to win the game next turn either. So my attack is for a maximum of 11. No, I'm actually just dead on board, unfortunately. Like, I can't block enough to really stay alive here. Attack with the Kothon. If I had, if this power was undepleted, then I'd be able to stay alive going down to 2. But unfortunately, it's not quite going to work out. And that's gonna do it. So, tough way to start off with this deck, but Practice Tokens is always gonna be kind of a rough matchup as long as they draw, you know, their token producers. So let's go to the next game. All right, ready for game number 2, and this hand looks pretty promising. These Diplo Seals are showing up at pretty awful times, though. I'm really only going to be able to get 1 influence out of these, and it has to be a primal, because this Combray Banner needs to come out on turn 1. I think I still do keep it. I mean, I've got turn 2 Awakened Student, turn 3 Unseen Commando, and hopefully turn 4 Sheltering Rider. So we're going to start with the Combray Banner. Like, the fact that these Diplo Seals like kind of both need to be primal in order for the Sheltering Rider to come out means that I can't really play one on turn 1 because I can't play a primal, like basically a primal sigil on turn 1 and then play the Awakened Student on turn 2. So we will make a primal now, though, for the Awakened Student. And we just have to find a second primal for the Sheltering Rider at some point before turn 4. I guess we have Orian, or we have the Orian, we have Sveta at some point before then, if we need it. Opponent is just strategizing on turn 2, which means they don't have a torch And I like it when the opponent doesn't have a torch, although they could still have a hailstorm, which is very scary. There's the second primal. It's a pretty big deal. But attack for 3.
Trust in your skills.
Alright, so I would certainly hate to see a hailstorm. No question about that. Which they can't have here, because they don't have a second primal. So we could see a torch, could see... Alright. Oh, he just drew 2 torches off that strategize. That's pretty impressive. Right before we draw the stand together, too. Okay. So we're just going to play the Sheltering Rider out here. Mistveil Drake. Okay, well that actually shuts our Sveta off because Sveta can only pop the face Aegis. So that's kind of awkward. As we just draw more power. So I could stand together here, just get in for 6, but I would actually rather Sveta here. Just so I can have the stand together for both units next turn. Alright, well, if I don't draw anything here, then I actually will just have to like preemptively stand together. Alright, good thing I drew a 3-drop, because that means I actually can play this stand together and actually affect 2 units, which is what I really wanted to do to begin with, so that's really nice. Now I've got 2 Aegis threats on the board. I mean, it's not impossible for the opponent to deal with this. It's not easy. Yeah, I see all he needs is like a Lightning Storm plus Vanquish or something, which you didn't have here. Okay. So only get to attack for 1 there. Seraf's 2 turns away from activating, assuming I draw nothing but power. Which I guess is good, because it means power is a good draw and non-power is a good draw, because I can play anything that I do draw. Equivocate. Oh, I mean, it's probably the worst card I could draw. It's not a bad draw per se, just presumably most of my opponent's deck is going to have Aegis. So Equivocate is really just probably going to have to save the Seraph or Sheltering Rider from a removal spell. Okay, well, standing together is a pretty big deal. That would allow me to actually attack for lethal if the opponent has nothing. If they have something, it's not lethal anymore. Right, because this is 4, becomes 7. Well, this becomes 7, this becomes 4, so it becomes 11. So I think we will go for it. We're going to stand together before damage, and he has nothing. And it's going to end up being 11. So we were able to win that game before the scary 6/6 Aegis came out, although he didn't have Aegis anymore, or he wasn't a 6/6 anymore, so I guess we would have still been fine. We just needed to dodge like a Island's Choice or Lightning Strike or Unseal in that case, but we did, and we're 1-1. Let's go to the game number 3. Alright, and we are back for game number 3. We're probably going to do a 4-game set here. As, alright, well this hand just has 2 power and a bunch of 3s and 4s, so unfortunately I can't keep it. I'm on the play. I think I've been on the play for all 3 games. That's a really big deal when you're playing a tempo deck like this. Unfortunately, this hand does not lend itself very well to tempo-oriented things. This Diploseal needs to be a combination of time and primal, so that's kind of awkward. I'm not entirely sure there are enough primal sources in this deck. It seems like I'm always good on having multiple justice sources, but I seem to only ever have 1 primal a lot of the time. I'm going to make it a time here, though. It lets me have Equivocate available. Not that I need to Equivocate anything this turn, but just having access to playing that card is really good for me. All right, we're going to Hoover Pacifier. We're playing against something that is likely to have torches, which means Kothon isn't really a great play here. Second sight often means crown stuff. But if he had a crown, he would have held the second sight. So he doesn't have a crown yet. He also may not be playing crown at all. Just second sight is an extra copy of like Strategize or something. Yeah, we're just gonna play the Sveta here and then probably Mirror Image. I don't know what we're gonna Mirror Image. Either Mirror Image the Sveta to shut our opponent's like turn off again, or Mirror Image the Flyer just to have an extra 3/4 flyer.
For what you have done.
But for right now, let's just shut the opponent down from playing any second sights or strategizes or something on their turn. Opponent's probably playing a pretty spell-heavy deck. This color combination does often lend itself to playing multiple like spells. All right, we got power number 5. So now that I drew a second Hoover Pacifier, I'm not positive that I actually just don't want to play that plus Kothon, although I think actually Mirror Image is going to be a little bit better here. Or I can attack with both of these, and if the opponent double blocks, Equivocate. I don't think I want to blow an Equivocate on one of these guys, though. They're both pretty bad for their cost, so I'm most likely be upgrading them. So I think I do like Mirror Image on the Sveta.
You will suffer for what you have done.
Okay, and if they do double block, I think I will Equivocate just to keep my unit alive. But didn't happen. Go with Kothon. 6 power can pretty easily mean Heart of the Vault, which doesn't kill anything, and that's actually a decent Equivocate target. It does let me get in with a bunch of units, and I think I like that. I'll play the power because it means I can actually activate Seraph next turn. Yeah, so get rid of your 6 so I can actually attack with everything. No great double blocks from the opponent. Remember when they did make, I'm fine with. So now I just have to decide if I want to play around something like double Hailstorm or like some type of Hailstorm plus Lightning Storm combo. And the answer is probably just run it out. Because like next turn I definitely want to activate the Kothon. And opponent just scoops it up. So that game kind of showcases the power of Sveta, where we just kind of lock the opponent out of playing the game for 2 turns, and they obviously weren't able to kind of recover from that. Like I don't know how many spells they left stranded in their hand. Probably some copies of like Wisdom of the Elders and things like that. But with that, I think that is actually game number 4. So let's actually head back to the deck building screen. I'll see you guys there. After a quick double check, I realized there actually is a 4th game left to be played. I only played 3. I didn't want to jip you guys of a 4th game. So let's jump in for the 4th and final game of this video. I'm looking at a hand that has 1 Primal again, no 2-drop, and not necessarily an ability to play the Sveta in my hand. This current hand just kind of folds really hard to a single torch and gets run over by aggro pretty hard, so I think I'm actually going to redraw this. I think there's an argument to keep it, like maybe it's fine. This hand at least has a couple 2-drops I can play, but yeah, I'm not sure which of these 2 hands would have been better. Yeah, I have to bottom pretty much any non-power card there. Like I don't think there's a single card that wasn't a power that I would keep on top with that scout. Just because it's so important that I hit powers number 3 and 4 for this Stand Together and these Sheltering Riders. Like I can't be stuck on 2 forever. And also with like Mystic or with the Awakened Student, I don't want to leave that as a 2/2 for, you know, my entire life.
Mind over body.
All right, and unfortunately, 1 out of every 4 games you're gonna get stuck on 2. And it's mostly because of the redraw system, so not entirely sure I'm going to keep this in the video. If I do, it'll just be a quick little rant on the redraw system, which is awful, but alright, we'll take 3 here because we're not going to chump. Opponent has a Stand Together, decided to show me that they have a Stand Together instead of playing out a unit pre-combat.
Trust in your skills.
Alright, we did get a power. So that unlocks our own Stand Togethers. We'll attack. Opponent probably has power number 4, which means I can't really block this Awakened Student anyway. But currently as it sits, I'm not really going to be able to deal with his, with his Sheltering Rider, or his Unseen Commandos. Power number 4, but unfortunately not a power that can play the Sheltering Rider. That's kind of an issue. But actually didn't have a 4th power, so I actually do have a block on the 3/3 now. Although I still don't have any blocks on his flying units. I will play out the flying unit of my own. I'm not going to block, but I will have Stand Together available next turn. Bruna did draw their 4th power also. Yeah, but since I know about his Stand Together, I have to double block this Awakened Student. Unless it ends up being a Finest Hour, in which case I probably just lose the game on the spot. But for right now, I think just going with the double block is what I have to do. He chooses not to play the Stand Together at all. Diploseal rearing its ugly head. Its inability to really do it. I think it's just going to be game, right? I can't really block these Unseen Commandos. He's going to Stand Together and kill me with them. I can't jump the Kothon. Like, I don't have 6 power, so I think it's probably just going to have to be game. Like, pretty much all I can really do is chump block. Yeah, I mean, a lot of this goes back to bottoming that Valkyrie Enforcer on, like, turn number 1, but I probably never would have found that extra power if I didn't, or it would have been a whole another turn behind. And yeah, it's not really entirely sure why the opponent didn't do that on their turn, like while they attacked. I'm not sure what they were trying to play around. But yeah, basically missed out on 2 damage for no reason whatsoever. So just using a Stand Together to counter a Permafrost doesn't really work out all that well. But, you know, this game, we're kind of seeing the strength of what the mirror image can do. Like, if you draw it and have units that you can actually put it on. I did 0 of those things this game, but, you know, as we can, like, pretty clearly see, like, him having a second Unseen Commando without even drawing a second Unseen Commando is a pretty big deal. I'm actually going to play a 5th game because I don't like keeping games that, you know, you don't actually get to play because of the redraw system screwing you over. So it's, I guess, jump right into a bonus game because I don't really want to leave it on the redraw system costing games. So bonus game number 5 as a 3 power. I can play the Huru Pacifier on turn 3, and I'm on the play. This is one of the rare like hands that doesn't have a 2-drop that I think I do want to keep because I think this is better than most redraws. Plus we get like an extra scout. Maybe we can try to find something that way. Finest Hour is not really a card I care about. But as a Crest of Wisdom on turn 1, very likely just means that we're playing a mirror. Could possibly mean like some type of Chalice or Control deck or something, but oftentimes this means you're seeing a mirror. So is there anything that I need to seek power for? I'm going to play Combray Banner this turn, Seat of Order next turn. So no, there's actually nothing specific that I need. I'll just grab the Justice Sigil. And I'll play out the Combray Banner. So next turn I'll Seat of Order and play Hoover Pacifier. I've got power number 4 for my Svetias, which can go a pretty long way. Would have been nice to have a 2-drop or like have Kothon on turn 2 instead of on turn 3, but no complaints here. Alright, so it's probably going to end up being Chalice in this case. TJP decks don't usually play Temple Scribe unless they're trying to do some degenerate things. So we will attack. We will Sveta. You know, maybe he's playing a Runehammer deck. Shut that off for right now. Although I guess we have Hoover Pacifier for that, so I'm kind of just saying things that don't make any sense. Well, I would love to play out the Sveta to shut off a potential Harsh Rule for next turn, but I think Finest Hour might actually be the better play. Yeah, so we'll just attack. I'm not sure if I'll actually play out a unit after the Finest Hour, because now that I can't play this Sveta, Harsh Rule is like a real possibility. And also, if I hold up... It's an interesting double block that doesn't do anything. But I will find a tower for sure. Now I guess I'm able to hold up Stand Together, which the opponent was playing around there. So maybe I'll get him to play around it again. So I do think the opponent is on Chalice, just a Chalice deck that plays Sheltering Rider, which is pretty common nowadays. I mean, as far as Chalice decks go.
Close your eyes. Listen.
I think I should equivocate that and play out the Sveta, like... Just getting rid of that so it can't block my Sveta and then turning, like, his turn and just replaying a 3-drop, I think is pretty good.
You will suffer for what you have done.
So I think any opportunity I have to stop him from playing Harsh Rule is a good opportunity. Valkyrie Justicar doesn't do anything. Is that a card that was actually in his deck, or did he get that off of... Alright, it looks to me like that Justice Sigil is kind of faded away, so I think that was just what they got off of the Combray Healer getting equivocated. So we'll attack with both.
Think you can escape me?
Alright, no complaints here. Okay, so we're just trying to save as much damage as possible. Well, I'll pass the turn then. I don't think he makes that block unless he has a sweeper, right? Oh, he doesn't have a Harsh Rule now. I mean, he still might, but he doesn't have 5 power.
Close your eyes. Listen.
Okay, so puts the opponent up to 16. I think I might just equivocate. Attack for 11. Yeah, let's keep his blockers to a minimum. And then we drew it. Alright, so we played perfectly, obviously. I could use the Stand Together proactively. Attack for what ended up being 14 points of damage. But since it doesn't kill him, and the clock remains the same no matter what, I think I do want to use this, because if he Harsh Rules without knowing that it's going to get countered, he basically uses up his entire turn. So I don't think I use a Stand Together proactively here, because I would rather try to blow the opponent's entire turn out and just guarantee I win the game instead of giving them a chance to try to figure out a way out of it. I'm not sure it matters one way or another, but I'm just leaving it as a surprise as long as possible, especially if it doesn't change how the clock actually works out. So I think I don't Stand Together unless he has exactly hard. Like if he wants to permafrost something, I think I'll let that happen. Or he wants to vanquish something, because like he might just be trying to bait out the Stand Together.
You'll never catch me alive.
Okay, sure.
Travels, friend.
So I can Stand Together just to kill this, which I guess works. Like he jumps there and still dies. I guess I just do that. I guess the kill is 4/4. And then we attack for lethal. Actually, I can actually Ultimate Kothon. And then attack for lethal.
My friend.
And opponent with only 1 power is going to make a chump block and fall down to -4. Alright, so we played 5 games. We only won 3 of them. One of them was a power screw game, but hopefully I was able to show off the strength of the deck. I want to meet you guys back at the deck building screen, and I will talk a little bit more. Alrighty guys, welcome back. So I just want to talk about what I've noticed about the deck, things that maybe I would change, things that I really like about it, and where I think the deck can really go. So, with those 5 games, hopefully you guys got to see, but in those games you got to see the strength of Awakened Student, the strength of Sveta, the strength of Stand Together, all those things. Hoover Pacifier was kind of a stud in all the games that we played for the most part. So the things the deck can do really, really well is get on the board early and just punch you in the face before giving other decks a chance to really respond. Because like one thing you can do pretty well is have like 2-drop into 3-drop and just hold up Stand Together for the rest of the game and not really let your opponent have any profitable blocks or profitable interaction. And I think that is like a real strength of the deck, is being able to go 2-drop, 3-drop, Stand Together. And it also has like a relatively decent like mid to late game with Stand Together on Sheltering Riders, on Unseen Commandos, things like that. You can just kind of turn the corner really quickly with decks like this. Like you just drop a flyer and have Stand Together back up, and all of a sudden your opponent is just like on the back foot, unable to really interact in any type of way. So that's what the deck can do really well. As far as the influence base goes, you are playing a 3-faction aggressive deck, so a lot of times you do get kind of like screwed just by your influence base. Like having Awakened Student and Kothon and having the influence play either of them on turn 2 is not a particularly easy setup to have, because obviously, you know, this is 3 different influences. Like they share justice, but like you need time on turn 2, you need primal on turn 2, you need double primal at some point. Sheltering Rider is the only double primal card. Whole bunch of double justice. So like obviously that's why we're playing 5 justice sigils and then a whole bunch of like justice generating seats and banners, is because getting the second justice is key. You really can't do anything without 2 justice. But a lot of times having a second primal for Sheltering Rider can make or break how a game plays out. So maybe I think you want to get like 1 extra primal source into the deck somehow. Maybe you play like an extra Crest of Wisdom instead of like the 4th Diplo Seal or the 2nd Hoover Banner or something like that. I guess Hoover Banner you don't really want to cut. Maybe you trim like the Combre Banner or something. I don't know. You know, obviously I'm not great at building influence bases or power bases, and I acknowledge that, and I don't want to like mess too much with this. The numbers are solid enough. They got to get Kamado to a 2nd place finish at the ETS, so I don't want to mess around with his numbers too much, although I do feel like getting just 1 extra primal source in the deck somewhere, maybe Crest of Wisdom instead of Justice Sigil or something. It gives you an extra depleted power. Maybe it's worth it for consistency's sake. I'm not sure, but yeah, as far as the deck goes, I really like the inclusion of Mirror Image. I do think 4 is a bit too much, but I think having Seraph in the deck as well, like being like the 2-2 split, I think is very, very good as far as where the deck is headed. So yeah, this is my little showcase of the TJP Midrange deck featuring Sveta Orian of Coastal. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you hit the like button on the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. Let me know how poorly I played, or how you think this deck is set up to move forward. What changes would you make? And just let me know in the comments down below. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys again next time.